Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. Today we're going to focus on what some of us consider a rather esoteric part of life at Southside High School. It's our science research program. We're here to be confused. Not really. We're really trying to explore a little bit about some of the in-depth work that some of our students here at Southside are able to do. Not just here, but in cooperation with universities. And the person who coordinates that is a gentleman by the name of Herb Weiss, longtime science teacher at Southside High School. Thanks, Herb, for coming in today. And two of our seniors, Gabby Steinberg, thank you very much for joining us, and Miguel Julialco.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Herb, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about the history of the program, where it is, and numbers of students who participate, what you try to accomplish.
Sure. Well, what we try to do is, of course, we try to develop the critical and analytical thinking skills that future scientists are going to need. How we start them, we start students on as freshmen. They come in, we have both writing and literature review projects, and then we move on to projects, real science projects, where we'll order certain material in, and they'll work on something, something that's appropriate for the grade level. Usually, when they finish up 10th grade, I try to find a home for students, and if not 10th grade, definitely by 11th grade, at local universities, and sometimes not so local universities. Where, look, although I consider myself an expert in the field, there are real experts in the field who devoted their life into a branch of science and know a lot more than I do, and that's where they come into play, and their colleagues, friends of friends, and I try to find a home for each student based on what their not their need, but what their like is. So for argument's sake, with Gabby over here, we had a long conversation, and her favorite subject is biology, so I'm not going to look for a chemistry or physics project. So we found something in Rockville University, believe it or not, with an old student, Maria Passarelli, who's working on a PhD over at Rockefeller, and I made the connection between the two of them. Miguel's sort of a little different. He had a passion toward chemistry, at least that's what I thought last year, and I set him up in a program at Stony Brook, the Garcia program, and he loved it. He had a great time, but he sort of felt he wanted to go in a different way, and he's really good at coding, and so he worked on a different project with a different method this summer, on a coding project. So again, nothing's etched in stone. We try to find the right person for the right student, and vice versa, as we go along.
More than that, though, how many students? You said it's a 4-year program, but
Yeah.
we start with kids in their freshman year.
Yeah,
They continue. It's a 4-year, pretty much a 4-year commitment.
It
for
is
the
a
majority.
4-year commitment, and a lot of kids start out, and a lot of kids, here's the thing, I mean, we have about 65 kids in the program, and, kids will come in 9th grade and they'll say, well, maybe it's not something I like. I tried it, and I want to try something different, and, that's great. We want kids to try this, and then there are kids that first find out about the program, which it's out there, they should know it's there, but they're in 10th grade. They said, really, I can do this? And I said, come on in. So we'll take kids in 10th grade or 11th grade, but of course, I'd much rather have them as a freshman, because as a freshman, what you're going to do is you're going to learn to research a project. What students don't understand, or people don't understand, is that there's a lot of library work involved in research. So what happens is that you have to be able to write a paper, you have to be able to cite a paper, and this is done really as a freshman, you have to be able to, not only that, talk about your paper, present your paper through the both written and spoken language.
Yeah, but it's my understanding that in each one of these projects, the reason why you do the library research is to find out what was done in your field, and then you're going to add something to it that wasn't done before. So, Gabby, why don't we start with you just for a couple of minutes? Tell me a little bit about the history of your project. Am I going to understand this?
I think so.
Okay.
So the researcher I was working with is doing an MD PhD on breast cancer metastasis, which is when breast cancer moves to other parts of the body, and she found a link between the specific protein called AARS, and she found a correlation between an increased level of that protein and decreased metastasis of breast cancer. So she was researching that, but what she hadn't done was compare
Isn't that fascinating? Now, now this is something you identify in somebody prior to the time that they would.
This was right before I came to the lab.
Okay.
But she wasn't sure about the link across different types of cancer. So, for example, non-cancerous breast cells compared to non-metastatic breast cancer versus low and high metastatic breast cancer. So like different levels of aggressiveness pretty much. And so I did a project over the summer where I compared levels of this protein and quantified and compared the proteins across different types of breast cancer.
So, we always look at science to some extent as solving world problems and practical problems. At the end of the day, I guess we're working on the prevention of breast cancer and or the better treatment of it. Is that where you think your research is going to find its place?
I think so. One of the really cool things about my project that I enjoyed is that the lab I work in they don't create medications. They work with sort of natural biological mechanisms. So the protein I was working with is something that's naturally found in all living cells. And so it's something that has the potential to sort of use your body's own natural mechanisms to fight cancer, which is sort of where I think like the future of medicine is going, and is sort of minimally invasive, and it's really cool.
So let me just walk back a moment. I mean, I'm looking at it from the point of view of what your research is going to find. But personally, how does it feel to be participating in something that could have just an incredible impact on the world?
It's really cool, and it's very different than the type of science you do kind of in a standard science class, in the sense that you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, and the project, it was really interesting to find results, especially when it wasn't exactly what they expected. Like, the results of my project were that the protein actually increases as the protein can be linked to helping prevent cancer in its early stages, but actually helps cancer later on during metastasis. And so that was this interesting link that had never been found before. And so to sort of discover that and be able to talk about that in a lab meeting with graduate level scientists was a really cool experience.
You're right in on the ground level. Yeah. Do you want to pursue this as a college student?
I think so, yeah. Right now I'm looking at a lot of like public health and biology programs in college.
So you think you're going to pursue science in college?
Yeah.
You are? Okay. Miguel. Now, I understand he was just saying you've done it twice now.
Yeah,
Two
separate projects, 2 different summers. I worked at Stony Brook.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, and I didn't get to this with Gabby. We talk about summer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at a 12-month school year for you guys. I mean, this school does not end. It just changes what it looks like. So during the summer, you are still committed to the learning that you've undertaken during the school year, but it takes on a very, very different characteristic. You're at Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Do you go there every day?
Over the summer, I went 5 days a week, so it was
Wow.
kind of like normal school, 6 hours a day. So, yeah, in a sense, it's like having school throughout the whole year.
Yeah, but it's a whole different
It's a
mindset.
different, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's so narrowly defined, I would think. I mean, when you think of the study that you're talking about, trying to isolate a single protein, oh my goodness, that's really very narrow. Now, you went to the city.
Yeah, so I was going into the lab 5 days a week from 9 to 5, and then that was not including commute time, so it was a very full-time thing.
Long day.
But
Did
it's
you go
still,
5 days a week also?
Yeah.
Wow. All during July and August?
July and most of August. I think it was
Wow.
like 6 weeks.
So it's a hike out to Stony Brook.
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's not right around the corner.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to take the train every day.
Yeah. But there's got to be a real draw for you to do that.
Yeah.
You must love what you do.
Yeah, science research is really fun. Finding new things and doing graduate level research at a university is something that I'm interested in and I want to pursue in the future.
So tell me a little bit about, I don't know if we want to go backwards, but start with the most recent study that you did this past summer.
So Over the summer, I worked at the Stony Brook's Biophotonics lab, and I worked with terahertz radiation.
Not that anybody understands that, but what's a biophotonic?
It's basically we're looking at images, and from that, be able to determine something. So in my case, burn depth analysis. So what I did is I developed a machine learning algorithm in order to, from terahertz characteristics, determine the burn depth of a burn injury.
Of a burn injury?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So again, both of you are in essentially the life sciences, and you're still going to be able to, hopefully in your case, prevent, and in your case, treat.
Yeah.
So the depth, what difference in your mind does that make if you're able to detect the depth of a burn injury?
Well, the burn depth determines like the level of burn. So if you only damage the superficial layer of your skin, it can regenerate on its own and doesn't need much outside treatment. But if it goes further, then you most likely need surgery. So it's important for doctors to distinguish between different burn levels in order to determine the course of treatment.
And your algorithm enabled this technology?
Yeah.
Now, what is it? They take a picture of,
So it
how does that
happens that
work?
they scan it using this terahertz system, and it shoots a terahertz signal in, and then we receive back the signal, we look at its characteristics, and from that, we input it into this algorithm, which takes the data and determines what is the probable burn depth.
So it
of the
can get
sample.
inside the type of tissue,
Right.
your skin tissue, and determine whether or not it's been affected by a burn or not.
Yes.
Well, that's remarkable. And you figured this out on your own?
I
Or you're
looked
part
at
of a team?
You can't just like make up things, and like a lot of it is previous research. So you have to look and research a lot in order to find out these things, and then talk with people. So I found that really interesting about science research.
Are you going to pursue something along these lines? I mean, just the research itself, the thinking that goes along with it.
Yeah, so definitely want to do that in college. I feel like it's something that's really interesting and makes what I do meaningful. So.
You know, it's funny how science changes the world. And just to see the two of you committed to it the way you are at this point, I mean, it gives the world a great deal of hope to know that whether it's breast cancer or burns, that there are young people like you interested enough to continue this and make this a life's work. So let me just talk to you about personally a little bit. Did you start as a freshman, both of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
And how much time does it, I mean, during the regular school year, do you spend time as well?
Yeah, for the it's definitely when I'm in school, we work on more of the research aspects, and then when I'm at the college, I have access to the resources available to research. So yeah, it's constant back and forth, both in the college and both in Southside.
Do you stay connected to the people that you work with during the summer?
Yeah, I always have to communicate with them in order to continue my research, because I developed a machine learning algorithm, which is computer science. So sometimes I have to do some coding at home. So I always have to stay connected.
How about you, Gabby?
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have access to the labs when I'm not over the summer, but I am in contact with the person I worked with, and I am in contact with her when I'm sort of preparing my papers and doing background research and analyzing my data from the summer.
Now, I know one aspect of science research is competition. Not that that's the reason why you do it. I mean, listening to the two of you speak, it's really about a life's work and actually committing itself to I'm more than a thinking process. I mean, you changed hats. I didn't go back to the other study, but nevertheless, I mean, it's once you wear that hat of research, I guess you can pretty much apply it anywhere. But it's a commitment to a life's body of work. But there's competition as well. Do we compete?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, right now, both Gabby and McGill are in the middle of putting together their Regeneron papers. Regeneron is a national competition for high school seniors only, in which the best of the best compete. But we do a lot of local competitions as well. We start these students off in 9th grade. We do an Nassau Community College Science and Arts Fair. We do the Malloy College Science Fair. We do Long Island Science Congress, Long Island Science and Engineering Fair. We do Toshiba Explorer Vision. I mean, I can bore you with a lot more, but
No, that's
we
all
really
right.
do a lot of competitions. And the thing about the competitions it's not a one-size-fits-all. I give the students an opportunity to say, okay, I'm doing something in life science, so there's certain competitions for life science, there's certain competitions for social science. And what we try to do is, okay, you're going to do the ones that fit the work you're doing. Not that you must do these competitions. That's important because what we want to do is we want to make sure the students have a positive experience in the competitions. And so you find the right place for the right student. And we get to know the students, so we know where they belong.
Yeah, I think one thing we didn't touch on is that even in these competitions, you meet kids like yourself.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we used to call them brainiacs, but I'm not sure what kind of language you use to describe the work that you guys get involved in. But you meet kids from other school districts, I assume, who are equally as engaged as the two of you. You find a connection. In addition to that, you also meet them where, I mean, I'm sure you're not working in isolation, either you at Rockefeller or at Stony Brook, right?
Yeah, I guess communicating with other people who are interested is always interesting. Also, just learning about what they're doing is always so fascinating because everything in science research is so in-depth, and it's always fun looking at what everyone else is doing. So.
And the research I did over the summer, it was actually, I think there was only one other high school student in the lab out of, I think, around 20 people. So I was actually mostly surrounded by young researchers pursuing their graduate or doctorate degrees, and so that was sort of a cool experience to be around people that were primarily a few years older, but not way older, so I could sort of see myself as them in a few years and learn from what they were doing and studying.
Wow. So we're right at the very end. If you don't mind just kind of telling me a little bit as to whether or not you would recommend it for fledgling freshmen. Is it, you know, most of what we do in high school is broader, not in-depth, and you just mentioned the in-depth piece of it. It really is a unique opportunity to dig really deeply into a very, very narrowly defined problem. Is it worth it?
I think it definitely is if you're interested, but you need to, the interest is really the most important part because there's always challenges, there's always obstacles. So it's important to have that drive in order to overcome the obstacles that are present in research.
You feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree with Miguel. It can be really rewarding if you're the right type of person for it, but you definitely need to have some persistence and have the work ethic to really want to get into it and motivate yourself to do it.
It is work.
Yeah,
And lots of it, lots of dedication. So I thank you both for the work that you're doing. I'm anxious to see where yours goes, and yours also, both of them. I mean, when you think about what you can do with what you've found, remarkable. So thank you both very much for joining us today. It's really, not that I understand exactly what you're doing. Hopefully one day we'll be able to see the results of that in the world of tomorrow. So Herb, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and understand that the experience here at Southside High School includes this very unique experience for our students. We'd encourage anybody who comes into Southside to consider it as a possibility. So thanks again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.